Chapter 1111, Fang Yuan's Third Earthly Calamity. Chapter 1111, Fang Yuan's Third Earthly Calamity. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Southern Border. Mountains were standing tall, greenery was widespread, mountains' winds howled endlessly. More than 10 Gu immortals, thousands of li apart, formed a huge circle. In the sky above this circle, an old Gu immortal was using his immortal essence, concentrating as he set up the formation. The framework of a formation was already placed, covering a gigantic surrounding area. A huge illusory light lump was within. This huge light lump was shining in many colors, dazzling and bright. It was the giant dream realm. After the battle of Tian Mountain, the place was in shambles. Spectral soul was plotted against by heaven's will. Fang Yuan obtained the fruits of his labor, and his main body was trapped in the dream realm, constantly getting weakened by it. Even though the southern border Gu immortals did not know about the details of the battle of Tian Mountain, they knew about the immense benefits involving this giant dream realm. The Gu immortals here came from the respective righteous path superforces in southern border. After a difficult negotiation, they came to an agreement. They were going to control this giant dream realm together. This dream realm was too important, none of the super forces could take it down alone. They were afraid of the demonic path and lone immortals coming to gain benefits. Thus, the righteous path joined up and occupied this place, setting up a super Gu formation here so that they could slowly devour the benefits of the dream realm later on. Rise! The old Gu immortal in the sky suddenly shouted. Profound light shone from all directions around his body. Following him, the southern border righteous path Gu immortals put in effort. Large amounts of immortal essence was expended, countless mortal Gu were flying. Immortal Gu flew out of the Gu immortals one by one, landing in their respective spots. Many Gu immortals were sweating and nervous, some of them had trembling fingers. They had already spent 9 days and nights here setting up the Gu formation. Now, they were at a crucial moment of arranging the super Gu formation. They are about to succeed. Are we not taking action yet? If we don't do it now. Sigh. There is no chance. Around them, there are hidden Gu immortal experts. I suspect they have immortal Gu houses defending them. In that case. Conversations were quietly taking place. Demonic path and lone immortals understood the value of this giant dream realm. Even without this dream realm, this place had undergone a mysterious battle. There might be some Gu immortal corpses or inheritances left behind. They were all treasures. But the righteous path Gu immortals acted with caution. They did not give these demonic path and lone immortals any chance. Without any chance, these Gu immortals wisely chose to retreat. Boom! With a loud sound, a huge pillar of light burst up into the sky. The pillar of light appeared quickly and vanished just as quickly. A huge super Gu formation gradually concealed itself, vanishing from the immortal sights. After so much hard work, it is finally completed. The old Gu immortal who set up the formation slowly descended. The righteous path Gu immortals gathered together. In setting up this formation, my Wu clan used 5 immortal Gu. Thus, 30% of this dream realm should belong to my Wu clan. Hehe, this makes sense. But, my Luo tribe contributed just as many immortal Gu as your Wu clan. What are you talking about? If we did not work together and used our immortal essence, could we have created this super Gu formation? In my opinion, in terms of contribution, my clan's first supreme elder, Chi Chu Yu, was the main person in charge of setting up the formation. He definitely ranks as the highest contributor. Even though the super Gu formation was set up, the righteous path Gu immortals had not decided how to split up the super dream realm yet. At once, sounds of discussion became louder and louder. They were progressing towards an argument. Arguments would have no use in terms of getting a result, of course. The righteous path Gu immortals left unhappily, starting to plan for their own share of this pie. A few days later. Xianxia Mountain. Xianxia greets Lady Qing Qing. Xianxia paid her respects. Shang Qing Qing looked at Xianxia, nodding in satisfaction. I was right about you. You have done well as the clan leader. The members of Shang clan are starting to show some unity. I was able to achieve this all thanks to Lady Qing's nurturing. Xianxia said with sincere gratitude. Shang Qing went into the main topic immediately. I called you to come here because I have some questions. After becoming clan leader, the first thing you did was to get rid of the arrest warrants of the black and white demons. But do you know, that brother He Tu of yours is not Fang Zheng, he is Fang Yuan instead. Fang Yuan. Xianxia was perplexed. She did not expect that Lord Shang Qing had called for her to talk about brother He Tu. After Xianxia became Shang clan leader, her vision had broadened, she learned many secrets. She knew that the beautiful lady in front of her was a high and mighty Gu immortal who transcended mortals. This Gu immortal was actually talking to her regarding immortal Gu master. How could she not be confused? Shang Qing had a solemn expression as she said, Xianci, you have to listen to my following words very carefully, they are very important. Yes, I will listen and learn. This black demon that you know of as Fang Zheng, his real name is Guyu Fang Yuan. He has a startling background, he is not an ordinary person. He appeared out of nowhere and is extremely dangerous. He is a demonic path Gu immortal, he committed a huge crime, not only southern border, but central continent, eastern sea, northern plains, and western desert Gu immortals are all pursuing him now. Shang Qing said in a solemn tone. Xianxia opened her mouth, she was in shock. At once, she felt like her ears were playing tricks on her. Since when did brother He Tu become an immortal, and he was so dangerous that Lady Shang Qing felt wary of him? Don't suspect your hearing, why would I joke about these things? You and the demon Fang Yuan had some friendship back then, tell me everything about it now. Shang Qing questioned. Yes. Xianxia regained her senses after some time, she began to recall, I first met brother He Tu in the merchant caravan, he was such a kind person, he saved me from that horrible predicament. Xianxia recalled the past, as she got deeper into it, a hint of tenderness was showing on her face. Throughout the process, Shang Qing listened on the side, not saying a word. After Xianxia finished, she mustered up her courage and tried to explain for Fang Yuan, Lady Qing, is there a misunderstanding? Fang Zheng, I mean, brother Fang Yuan is clearly a mortal Gu master, how can he be such a great demon? He. Shang Qing showed a mocking smile, if he is not a great demon, who is? His craftiness and deviousness is not something you can imagine. He turned the entire northern plains Gu immortal world upside down, central continent's heavenly court has not even managed to catch him yet. Nobody knows where he is, or what evil scheme he is planning next. Your encounter with him might not be as simple as you think, I can tell that there was a scheme involved in this. Do you know? Because of your relationship with him, my Shang clan is facing great pressure from southern borders Gu immortals. From now on, you have to keep a clear distance between you and him, there cannot be any relationship between the two of you. Be a good Shang clan leader, you may leave. Xianxia could only leave. You are letting her go. After Xianxia left, a figure appeared, standing beside Shang Qing. He was thin and looked very pale, it was Shang clan's Gu immortal Shang Mo. Shang Qing smiled, what else can I do? Shang Mo said solemnly, we cannot listen to her words alone, we need to soul search and see it for ourselves. Shang Qing smiled even wider now, look at this. Saying this, she stretched out her hand from her sleeve. Her hand was no longer a human hand, it was like a twig, there were flowers growing on her nails. Shang Mo saw it and was dazed, I forgot that you have this immortal killer move, it is more reliable than soul searching. I already know all of Fang Yuan's interactions in Shang Clan City. He came here for a fortuitous encounter in cultivation, as expected and worthy of the user of spring-autumn cicada. This is nothing much, he did not set up any hidden schemes after all. Shang Qing said. Shang Mo nodded, then I am assured, but, how will we explain this to the outsiders? Xianxia smiled coldly, them. They are just using Fang Yuan as an excuse to get a bigger share of the dream realm. Now that I have this result, I can shut their mouths. Shang Tanmo's eyes shined, he looked up, his gaze pierced Shangliang Mountain as he looked at the giant dream realm. Maybe, my Shang clan's Gu immortals have been too polite for a long time, people think we are no longer adept at fighting. The situation was still changing. Over in northern plains, the battle at He tribe had ended, there were just some loose ends. The righteous and demonic factions, as well as the lone immortals, had their own gains. He tribe was history, Bai Zhu tribe took them over and changed the situation in the Gu immortal world. In southern border, they were fighting over the giant dream realm. The righteous path Gu immortals worked together and managed to keep the demonic path and lone immortals out of it. But within the righteous path itself, a competition for shares of the giant dream realm was about to begin. No matter where and when, people will always fight over benefits and resources. More than 10 days passed like this. Northern Plains, Northern Icy Plain. Fang Yuan placed his immortal aperture, looking at the sky, muttering, finally, this is the third earthly calamity. Heaven and earth chi rumbled, there were no clouds or fog, there was a peculiar and strange scene of tranquility in the sovereign immortal aperture. Flying birds appeared from thin air. They were glowing with a slight green light, they flew extremely quickly. In Fang Yuan's vision, he saw long lines of light caused by their movement. The cry of the birds was extremely crisp, filled with endless vitality. Spring Dawn Jade Oriole. Fang Yuan's pupils shrunk, he recognized these flying birds. They might have tiny bodies, like sparrows, but they were genuine desolate beasts. These birds are very special among desolate beasts, they have a lot of rule path, life, Dao marks in their bodies, but they have very short lifespans. After the egg hatches, they can fly in the skies immediately. Everywhere they go, their Dao marks will rain down and change the terrain of the environment, pouring down endless life force. After a dozen or so breaths of time, their lifespan would be expended and they would die. Fang Yuan muttered in his mind, he could see that in this area of many northern plains, the thin layer of ice on the ground was already starting to have sprouts growing out of them. Soon, under the influence of the spring dawn jade orioles, grass grew taller, rapidly growing, and there were even wildflowers mixed among them. What is going on? What earthly calamity is this? Heaven's will is trying to help me develop my immortal aperture. Fang Yuan was confused. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 11-12, Spring Dawn Jade Orioles. Chapter 11-12, Spring Dawn Jade Orioles. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. The cries of the birds were unceasing and pleasing to the ears. Inside the sovereign immortal aperture, many northern plains was originally wilderness covered in frost, but now, green plants could be seen sprouting rapidly. The power of the earthly calamity was huge. In just a dozen breaths of time, a gigantic area surrounding Fang Yuan was already covered in greenery, it was a grassland. Grass, trees, and flowers grew rapidly, it was as if this was an entirely new place. Fang Yuan stood on the peak of Dang Hun Mountain, he had a heavy expression, he focused his mind. This was his third earthly calamity, he brought Dang Hun Mountain with him again. But the situation now was very strange. The earthly calamity involved spring dawn jade orioles, it was helping Fang Yuan to develop his immortal aperture. Half a month ago, when Treasure Yellow Heaven opened, Fang Yuan did not choose to go He tribe and take a risk, instead, he went back and developed the sovereign immortal aperture. He had developed many areas, but because many northern plains was the place where Fang Yuan would be undergoing tribulation, he did not develop it. Right now, this earthly calamity was helping Fang Yuan to do it, this was out of his expectations. This was a good thing for Fang Yuan. But Heaven's will can act in unexpected ways, it is not so kind, there are surely traps that it set, I need to inspect for them. Fang Yuan stood at the peak of Dang Hun Mountain, observing vigilantly. Many northern plains was huge. The grassland formed by the earthly calamity could not fill the whole of many northern plains, it only covered the part of the frosted land that was around Dang Hun Mountain. Looking at it, the greenery was growing thicker, soon, sprouting trees grew taller, rising at an observable pace. At this rate, a huge forest was going to form. Fang Yuan felt surprised and joyful. The power of the earthly calamity was usually used for destruction, against regular people. When used to develop the immortal aperture, it had truly shocking effects. If Fang Yuan wanted to transplant this huge forest into his immortal aperture, it would cost him a lot of time and effort. The Spring Dawn Jade Oriole had a short lifespan. As they died, they turned into Jade Green Life Force, fading in the air, but at the same time, more Spring Dawn Jade Orioles formed, moving forward in their place. At once, the sky was filled with the figures of these desolate birds. They were so numerous, like a flock of sparrows, it was a grand sight. Wait! Fang Yuan's expression suddenly changed. Go! He suddenly thought of something, he called out as he pointed. Instantly, sword light flew out, moving at lightning speed. Rank 7 Immortal Gu, Flying Sword. Spring Dawn Jade Orioles were fast, but they could not match the speed of this sword light. But they could move agilely, they did not travel linearly. Fang Yuan used up some effort to kill one. A wave of true meaning rushed in soon, entering Fang Yuan's mind. In an instant, Fang Yuan felt like a Spring Dawn Jade Oriole, from the start of life to flight, and until his death. In a short period of time, he experienced life and death, his mental state was transformed. Fang Yuan fully absorbed this true meaning, clarity returning to his eyes. Right now, he was a transformation path grandmaster, it was no longer as hard for him to absorb Reckless Savage's true meaning. If he was like an empty basin earlier trying to hold buckets of water, he was like a well now, taking in Reckless Savage's true meaning in huge quantity, with much greater ease than before. Fang Yuan frowned. At this moment, he realized the scheme of heaven's will. Fang Yuan's earthly calamity was very unique, because of the immortal tribulation tempering aperture method and the nature of the northern icy plain, his earthly calamity had two portions. One was controlled by heaven's will, the other was influenced by Reckless Savage's true meaning. In the previous two earthly calamities, the portion controlled by heaven's will formed first, before the part of the earthly calamity formed by Reckless Savage's true meaning appeared. But in this third earthly calamity, Reckless Savage's true meaning appeared at the start. Fang Yuan did not expect this. This was the first time he was seeing this. Fang Yuan suffered a minor loss. Between Reckless Savage's true meaning in developing the blessed land, the former was much more important than the latter. Because Reckless Savage's true meaning could directly raise his transformation path attainment level, it could only be obtained during each tribulation, the costs and risks involved were high. As for developing the blessed land, he could do it at any time. Heaven's will knows about my vigilant nature, this is a good scheme to prevent my transformation path attainment level from rising rapidly. I wasted a lot of Reckless Savage's true meaning. Fang Yuan smiled, not feeling dejected. He flew out like lightning. In the air, his body shook, as countless Strength Path phantoms appeared. Strength Path Killer Move, Myriad Self. Myriad Self charged forward, forming a huge tide of humans, rampaging towards the Spring Dawn Jade Oriole flock. Spring Dawn Jade Orioles were desolate birds, they could move freely among the Myriad Self army while chirping continuously. Myriad Self had little effect, Fang Yuan quickly used other methods. Sword Path Killer Move, Triple Layered Sword Wave. Swish swish swish. Silver-white sword waves burst out like tides, containing an unstoppable sharpness, pushing forward. The speed of the Spring Dawn Jade Oriole was faster than the sword waves. Fang Yuan sent out 3 sword waves, even though some were killed, the result was not many. He frowned, understanding, in the previous 2 earthly calamities, Heavens will already learned a lot about my foundation. Be it Myriad Self or Triple Layered Sword Wave, it knows about their weaknesses. In this earthly calamity, the Spring Dawn Jade Orioles counter my 2 killer moves. Heaven's will is plotting against me by intentionally setting up these situations. In the previous earthly calamity, there were wind flowers with sharpness like blades. But Fang Yuan had Dang Hun Mountain, using it as his base, he could defend himself to a great extent. But now, even though Fang Yuan brought Dang Hun Mountain, the Spring Dawn Jade Orioles were formed from reckless savages' true meaning, he could not sit around and defend himself, he needed to go on the offense or he would lose his greatest benefit. Thankfully, I retrieved Flying Sword Immortal Gu. Fang Yuan activated this rank 7 Immortal Gu, Sword Light rampaged according to his will. Spring Dawn Jade Orioles died at Fang Yuan's hands, but more and more Spring Dawn Jade Orioles died on their own. If Fang Yuan did not kill them, he would not receive infusions of reckless savages' true meaning. Heavens will purposely cause this, Fang Yuan's losses were not small. This was not just a loss of reckless savages' true meaning, but also his green grape immortal essence. Even though Flying Sword Immortal Gu was powerful, it was rank 7, each activation needed a huge amount of green grape immortal essence. But each attack only hit one Spring Dawn Jade Oriole, Fang Yuan was wasting a lot of his resources for limited results. It seems that I need new methods in the next tribulation. Old moves are losing effectiveness. Fang Yuan thought of Wisdom Gu. If he had the light of wisdom, this problem was easy to solve. With his Grandmaster attainment level and wisdom path methods, he could very easily deduce new immortal killer moves. But even though Fang Yuan had his immortal zombie body, he did not dare to use it. After 15 minutes of the earthly calamity, there were still Spring Dawn Jade Orioles forming. Mini Northern Plains was not just budding with greenery, there was a huge forest, the trees inside the forest were huge, they were dozens of meters tall, each of the tree trunks resembled pillars. At this time, Fang Yuan tried other methods like poison spit. In the previous earthly calamity, this killer move was very effective, but now it was useless against the Spring Dawn Jade Orioles. Growl, growl, growl. In the huge forest, trees raised their heads and cried out loud. Next, they uprooted from the ground, becoming huge tree men. Fang Yuan noticed the changes on the ground and snickered, so this is the portion controlled by heaven's will. Hee, I was vigilant and got rid of half the forest in advance, now it seems that my preparation was not in vain. Countless tree men pulled out their roots from deep underground, charging towards Dang Hun Mountain. They moved slowly, but each of them were huge. Fang Yuan changed his mind and chose to defend. He landed on the peak of Dang Hun Mountain, looking at the tree men moving towards him. It was a scene of greenery, it was like the entire forest was pushing towards him, he felt suffocated. Fang Yuan stretched out his finger and tried to attack. Flying Sword Immortal Gu charged over, turning into a bright light, piercing a great distance ahead, many tree men were penetrated. These tree men stopped moving but soon, their injuries were healed and they continued climbing towards Dang Hun Mountain. Fang Yuan used triple-layered sword wave again. The dazzling sword waves engulfed the tree men with sharp sounds. There was nothing left of them, the effect was great, but soon, tree men behind filled up the gaps. Fang Yuan frowned. These tree men are not desolate beasts, but they are close to that level. Not only are they very durable, they can absorb life force and recover rapidly. The life force naturally came from the Spring Dawn Jade Orioles. Ever since the first earthly calamity, event though heavens will could not control the entire earthly calamity, it could influence reckless savages' true meaning and create a combination. Last time, it was the snow moons and wind flowers, now it was the tree men and Spring Dawn Jade Orioles, they combined perfectly, gaining huge effect. Fang Yuan suddenly opened his mouth, spitting out a mouthful of poisonous air. The poisonous air spread around the tree men, dozens of them started to move slowly, their green leaves turned purple. In a few breaths' time, their movement became slower and slower, until they collapsed on the ground, the entire tree's branches and leaves started rotting, turning decayed. Poison spit's effect was quite good. But Fang Yuan could not continuously use this killer move, there was a huge drawback, he needed to get rid of the poison in his body first, otherwise, he would die. The tree men started to climb Dang Hun Mountain. Soon, these tree men experienced the power of Dang Hun Mountain, their souls shook, their bodies trembled, many leaves fell. However, there were too many tree men, they advanced forward, pushing each other up the mountain. Dang Hun Mountain was indeed a secluded domain of heaven and earth. Just at the base of the mountain, 100 tree men died. Fang Yuan did not use any immortal essence. Fang Yuan looked at the scene, his frown was deepening. Even though these tree men were troublesome, they had little threat. Because they moved slowly, Fang Yuan could attack from a distance and kill these tree men slowly. Fang Yuan felt something amiss. This earthly calamity is too easy, don't tell me, because heavens will felt that it cannot kill me this time. Its focus went to depleting my foundation instead. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 11:13, Giant Disaster Blazing Tree. Chapter 11:13, Giant Disaster Blazing Tree. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. To eliminate these tree men, he would need to expend a lot of immortal essence. The number of these tree men was greater than the first earthly calamity's snow monsters, and they had strong regenerative abilities. Fang Yuan could see many severed twigs that were stabbed into the ground growing with new budding leaves. Unless he used killer moves like triple-layered sword wave to completely decimate these tree men, to avoid any future problems. Otherwise, when these trees grow, they would expend a great amount of the earth chi inside the immortal aperture. But using triple-layered sword wave or flying sword immortal Gu to kill these tree men was too wasteful. If I were a fire path Gu immortal, this would not be a problem to me. Fang Yuan thought of this, when he suddenly heard a sound. Fire was starting from those tree men's corpses. The fire burnt rapidly, in the blink of an eye, it spread and covered countless tree men. The fire continued to rage on these tree men's bodies, turning these tree men into charcoal. Their leaves were completely incinerated, a great number of them died. The fire was nourished by the tree men and became larger, it was almost 20 meters tall. Raging flames advanced towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan was stunned. What is going on? Evidently, this was part of the earthly calamity. But why did the earthly calamity start burning itself? What was Heaven's will trying to do? Was it trying to resolve Fang Yuan's problem? Fang Yuan quickly ruled out the possibility. What a joke, how could Heaven's will help him? Roar! There was a huge figure standing among the roaring flames. In the orange-red flames, a 60-meter-tall giant stood up. This is... Fang Yuan's pupils shrunk to pin size, he subconsciously gritted his teeth. Giant disaster blazing tree. This was an ancient desolate plant. In history, immemorial red heaven often had these giant disaster blazing trees. But this type of ancient desolate plant was rarely seen in the 5 regions, although not extinct. Giant disaster blazing trees could be created from any type of tree. When a forest fire starts, after countless lifeforms are killed, there was a chance of forming this giant disaster blazing tree. The giant disaster blazing tree's body was covered in raging flames. It burned endlessly, nothing could get close to it. More impressively, this giant disaster blazing tree would cause bad luck to whatever life forms got close to it. Heaven's will, truly insidious. Evidently, Heaven's will has noticed the protection of dog shit luck on me, it created this giant disaster blazing tree to destroy my good luck. Fang Yuan felt a huge challenge. Normally speaking, if he encountered a giant disaster blazing tree in the wild, he would wisely choose to evade it. But now, this giant disaster blazing tree directly appeared in his immortal aperture, it was draining his immortal aperture's earth chi and bringing him disaster and bad luck, negating dog shit luck's effect. If he left it alone, soon, Fang Yuan would be extremely unlucky, nothing would go right, he might even face a huge disaster. As for refining immortal Gu, he could forget about it. Flames raged on, crackling sounds could be heard from the burning trees. The blazing tree had appeared in a very peculiar location, it was close to Dang Hun Mountain. Even though Fang Yuan activated his defenses, the huge flames were still causing his eyebrows and hair to dry up. This is only the periphery, but the temperature is already like this. What would the center of this blazing tree be like? Fang Yuan sighed, leaving. He left Dang Hun Mountain. He had landscape as before. He could restore Dang Hun Mountain before it was completely destroyed. The problem was how to kill this giant disaster blazing tree which reached partway up Dang Hun Mountain in height. Sword marks targeting death. Triple layered sword wave. Poison spit. Fang Yuan used many killer moves, but they were ineffective. The poison in the air was completely eradicated by the flames. Flying sword Immortal Gu pierced the giant disaster blazing tree and returned to Fang Yuan, but the giant disaster blazing tree only shook intensely, before turning to normal. As for triple layered sword wave, it managed to put out the flames. It got to the blazing tree and destroyed many branches and leaves. But soon, the flames spread again as the blazing tree returned to normal. Its injuries vanished after a few breaths of time. Fang Yuan's eyes shone with brilliance. Immortal aura burst out around him as he cried out, "Strength Path Giant Hand." Bam! A giant hand appeared out of nowhere, pushing the air and grabbing at the blazing tree with an unstoppable aura. But the blazing tree was huge too. It was almost half of Dang Hun Mountain size. The Strength Path Giant Hand grabbed the giant disaster blazing tree and tried to lift it up. But after some time, even after trying hard, there was no effect. The giant disaster blazing tree had countless roots. They were like snakes deeply rooted in the soil, sucking in earth chi fiercely. It also had the spring dawn jade orioles flying in the sky to replenish its life force. It was stable as a mountain, unmoving. As time passed, the entire Strength Path Giant Hand started melting in the flames. Almost half of it was gone. Fang Yuan dispelled this giant hand. He had an idea after some inspiration. Rumble. A second Strength Path Giant Hand flew out, but this time, it grabbed at Dang Hun Mountain instead of the giant disaster blazing tree. Fang Yuan could not lift the giant disaster blazing tree, but Strength Path Giant Hand had the power of pulling mountain. He could lift Dang Hun Mountain. Whoosh! Wind currents blew. Dang Hun Mountain was brought into the air by Fang Yuan, before he tossed it directly towards the giant disaster blazing tree. With a loud sound, the entire ground shook intensely. The giant disaster blazing tree was suppressed under the mountain. The huge flames were no longer apparent. There was only a ring of fire left around the mountain's base. Fang Yuan floated in the air, staring at the battlefield expressionlessly. The giant disaster blazing tree could not move. It was attacked by Dang Hun Mountain's soul path Dao marks, but it had incredible vitality and tenacity. It was still struggling intensely. Blazing flames started to roast Dang Hun Mountain, liquefying some of its rocks. It was not so easy to get rid of the giant disaster blazing tree. Fang Yuan was in a heavy mood. Looking around, it was a scene of red. A sea of fire. The flames had spread to the entire forest, and even the grassland. As expected, Heaven's Will's arrangements were just to nurture the growth of the giant disaster blazing tree. How could it be so nice to him? Fang Yuan's breathing became rougher. He saw that more and more giant disaster blazing trees were forming in the sea of fire. Their roots were digging into the ground as they sucked in earth chi to strengthen themselves. The first plant was not destroyed yet, but so many others were forming. Not just that, these giant disaster blazing trees were growling. They stood up and turned into giant blazing tree men. They had only one target, Fang Yuan, who was in the sky. Boom boom boom. Under Dang Hun Mountain, the first giant disaster blazing tree also became a treeman. It was not giving up, attempting to flip over this mountain. It had incredible strength. Each time it struggled, Dang Hun Mountain shook intensely, causing a huge and scary sound. In an instant, the situation became as bad as it possibly could. Fang Yuan could ignore the snow monsters earlier and slowly kill them. But he could not ignore these giant disaster blazing tree men. Even though they moved slowly, they had a terrible influence on the immortal aperture. Not only did they suck away earth chi and damage the sovereign immortal aperture's foundation, they would even bring Fang Yuan a lot of bad luck. What should he do? The light of the fire flickered on Fang Yuan's face. A smile slowly appeared on his face. Thankfully, I made my preparations. At the same time, Xianxia, who was in southern border, stared at the lamp in front of her in a daze. In the fire, it seemed to show Fang Yuan's former appearance. Brother He too. Xianxia thought to herself. Clan leader, clan leader. She heard something close to her ears. Ah! Xianxia regained her senses. She looked at Xiao Lan, Xiao Dai, Lady Wei, Zhou Quan, and her other subordinates. Sorry, my mind was wandering again. Xianxia quickly apologized. Miss, this is the third time you've gone into a daze. Xiao Lan muttered. I was disrespectful, I am truly sorry. Xianxia quickly said again. Zhou Quan and Lady Wei glanced at each other swiftly, before coughing. Now, let's continue the topic from before. How will we take in the Gu master groups that were controlled by Shang clan's former young clan leaders? After the meeting, everyone left the hall. Xiao Dai, how is the clan leader? Why is she constantly in a daze? Zhou Quan asked. Xiao Dai showed an expression of worry. I am not sure too. It seems that after the higher-ups met with her, she became like this ever since. Higher-ups? Zhou Quan's expression changed. He already knew about the existence of Shang clan's Gu immortals. This was not something that he could settle or interfere in. Yi Fan could not hold it in anymore. Let me go talk to Lady Xianxia, maybe as an outsider, I can learn something from her. Young Master Yi, you are not an outsider. Xiao Lan smiled. We will trouble you, young Master Yi. Lady Wei nodded, agreeing with this. A moment later, Yi Fan arrived at Xianxia's study room. The doors were shut. Through the small hole in the center, Yi Fan saw that Xianxia was holding onto a piece of paper, looking at it carefully. She was so deep in thought, even when Yi Fan walked with heavy steps, she did not notice it. Yi Fan was about to cough and remind Xianxia that he was here. But suddenly, he heard Xianxia's soft whisper, Brother He too, what kind of person are you? Yi Fan's heart jumped. He instantly understood. The paper in Xianxia's hand was none other than the Black Demon's arrest warrant. It was his drawing. Yi Fan felt a sense of hollowness in his heart. His strong limbs were turning frail. He stood outside the door. He hesitated for a long time before gritting his teeth, turning around and leaving. From start to finish, Xianxia did not discover him. Yi Fan walked out of the mansion, arriving at the street. This was the inner core of Shangliang Mountain, an important place in Shang clan. It was flourishing with bustling activity. But Yi Fan had a worried expression. He had a question inside him. Hey too, what kind of person are you? Northern Icy Plain. Chu Du's arms were behind his back. He watched this vast icy plain. Suddenly, his body shook. It's here. He received Fang Yuan's transmission and quickly used the immortal Gu in his hands. Rank 7 Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu. At the next moment, the Sovereign Blessed Land's entrance opened. First, Spring Dawn Jade Orioles were sent out of the entrance by a formless force. Next, one by one, the giant disaster blazing trees were dragged out without managing to put up resistance. They were unwilling, they were furious. The sky was rumbling with thunder, heaven's will was furious too. But it was no use. 2 hours later, the third earthly calamity ended. Fang Yuan collected his immortal aperture, appearing in the northern icy plain. Chu Du obtained quite a bit of reckless savage's true meaning. He cried out with an excited tone, walking on a long road for countless years, today I obtain the blessing of azure clouds. Flying above rivers and lakes on these clouds, nothing can obstruct my view of this world. His voice resounded over the surroundings. The disposition of the domination immortal was fully emanated. May I ask you for your name? Chu Du greeted Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan smiled lightly. Obstacles and difficulties fill this road, life and death matters little against calamities and tribulations. My body flies like willows with the wind, regardless of wind or mud I still fly free. After pausing, he returned the greeting to Chu Du, saying plainly, I am Lu Guan Yi. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 11-14, Obtaining one of two true inheritances. Chapter 1114, Obtaining One of Two True Inheritances. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Time passed quickly, several days went by. Xianxia blessed land, inside a cloud city. Feng Yuan was sitting in his secret room, cultivating. Using connecting heaven Gu, his divine sense communicated with a certain female Gu immortals will in treasure yellow heaven. Your pale azure incense is of lower quality than Gu immortal Shizi, the price should be cheaper. Feng Yuan bargained. But that female Gu immortal was not like Feng Yuan, who used his divine sense to conduct the deal. She had left her will in treasure yellow heaven, to manage transactions with goods. And unfortunately, this was a resolute will, it was obstinate in nature, it would not give in. As expected, the female immortal rejected with no hesitation at all. The price is like this, buy it if you want, it is up to you. Feng Yuan was not giving up yet, he continued, will you reconsider? I am buying in bulk. The resolute will was obstinate, it did not agree. Feng Yuan was a little annoyed. These last days, when developing the sovereign immortal aperture, he had to trade in treasure yellow heaven, to sell his own resources and buy all sorts of resources. But after the third earthly calamity, he felt that his transactions were not going smoothly. The female immortal's resolute will was one of them. But this was quite a good situation already. Feng Yuan had been encountering this recently. Gu immortals would come in and raise prices with ill intent, or he might see some shortage of certain materials, after rank 8 Gu immortal experts bulk purchase everything. Even though I have dog shit luck's protection, in the third earthly calamity, the giant disaster blazing tree destroyed a lot of my good luck. Thinking about his third earthly calamity, Feng Yuan sighed. If I did not think about it carefully and decided to work together with Chu Du before the third earthly calamity, I would have been done for. Even if I passed the tribulation, I would be heavily injured and stuck with bad luck. Currently, I am only facing some small obstacles, they are of no real concern to my cultivation. Feng Yuan quickly gathered his thoughts, his divine sense continued to negotiate with the female immortal in treasure yellow heaven. Since she did not agree to lower prices, Feng Yuan could only accept this. I will buy your pale azure incense. The female immortal's resolute will was stunned. Feng Yuan was making a huge purchase. He had to pay almost 10,000 immortal essence stones in this deal. But Feng Yuan was not shaken. With his accumulation from before, he was extremely affluent. Even though the third earthly calamity expended a lot of his green grape immortal essence, he could still afford 10,000 immortal essence stones. After buying the pale azure incense, Feng Yuan retrieved his divine sense, no longer staying in treasure yellow heaven. After inspecting it, he ensured that the pale azure incense had no problems, transporting them into his sovereign immortal aperture. His consciousness quickly entered his immortal aperture. The sovereign immortal aperture was split into 5 regions and 9 heavens. Feng Yuan placed strength path immortal zombies in all the different areas. Soon, one strength path immortal zombie flew over under his manipulation, using Gu worms to store the pale azure incense. There was no choice, his sovereign immortal aperture was too huge, he could only use these strength path immortal zombies as laborers. Every time he was in this situation, Feng Yuan thought of who immortal land spirit and star form land spirit. If he had a land spirit, the job could be handled by them, he did not have to waste so much time on this. The land spirit was basically the steward of the blessed land. They were very convenient to have. But it was a pity, Feng Yuan had never heard of any land spirits appearing in an immortal aperture before the Gu immortal dies. This pale azure incense resembled jade smoke, it constantly blew around, creating a hazy area. Feng Yuan placed all of the pale azure incense into mini azure heaven, causing this huge area to become more misty. Even though the strength path immortal zombie could not smell anything, the pale azure incense was very fragrant, it was very amazing, it had the smell of ink and grass, extremely elegant and long-lasting. After placing the pale azure incense, Feng Yuan set up some Gu formations. These Gu formations were made with mortal Gu, their only use was to keep the pale azure incense within a certain area, preventing it from dispersing away. I accumulated so much now, it is enough to feed change soul immortal Gu 3 times. Fang Yuan was satisfied. The pale azure incense would not renew itself, when he used it, it was gone for good. If he had to produce pale azure incense himself, it would be troublesome. Pale azure incense grew in places with primeval essence as well as pale crane groups, azure pine forests, ink bamboo forests and herb incense Gu. These 4 things, including beasts, plants, and Gu, were needed, and each of them had to be of a certain quantity, otherwise they could not produce pale azure incense. And this exact amount was a trade secret. Gu immortals who sold pale azure incense had a firm grasp of this secret, they prevented the secret from leaking. At this point, Fang Yuan could only temporarily store the pale azure incense. Pale azure incense was the food that changed soul immortal Gu ate, but the good thing was, it was widely sold in treasure yellow heaven. Fang Yuan had accumulated a lot of it now, it could last for some time. After more inspections, Fang Yuan modified the Gu formation, he took a final look before leaving, only to see that mini azure heaven had a small area of thick azure spots, it was different from before. Even though Fang Yuan placed great emphasis on developing his immortal aperture, on the whole, the sovereign immortal aperture was still very barren. The point was, the sovereign immortal aperture space was simply too big. Fang Yuan placed so many resources inside, if it were the normal aperture of any other Gu immortal, it would be filled already. Speaking of which, Fang Yuan's sovereign immortal aperture had quite a lot of Dao marks, but in influencing such a huge area of space, the Dao marks effect was very small. Fang Yuan retrieved the divine sense inside mini azure heaven. The pale azure incense was already placed, the development of Fang Yuan's immortal aperture had reached a certain stage. Before this, Fang Yuan had already bought several batches of resources, he settled the feeding requirements of sword eyebrows, wave sword, flying sword, and the other rank 7 immortal Gu. Rank 8 immortal Gu and rank 7 immortal Gu already have their food. Now, the development of my immortal aperture should be to resolve the feeding requirements of my rank 6 immortal Gu. Fang Yuan assessed. The first criteria of development for a Gu immortal's immortal aperture was to be self-sufficient in feeding one's own immortal Gu. Fang Yuan was a strength path immortal zombie previously, his immortal aperture was dead, he did not follow this rule. After reviving, he went steadily and surely, settling the feeding requirements of the rank 8 and 7 immortal Gu to some degree. Next were the rank 6 immortal Gu. There was a need to say, Fang Yuan simply had too many immortal Gu. It was a shocking quantity. But there was no choice, Fang Yuan had to raise so many immortal Gu, not only to resist the tribulations as well as heaven's will, but also against other Gu immortals. Fang Yuan's circumstances were bad. In the past, he had Shadow Sect, which concealed him from deductions. But after the Battle of Tian Mountain, this protection was gone, Heavenly Court placed his name on the Demon Judgment Board, they were determined to kill him. Northern Plains Gu immortals had deep hatred towards him, because Fang Yuan destroyed Imperial Court Blessed Land and 88 True Yang building, this was something that created more enmity than digging the graves of these Huang Jin bloodline tribes. The other Eastern Sea, Southern Border, and Western Desert Gu immortals were all after the luck path true inheritance. Even though Fang Yuan did not obtain the true inheritance of all living beings' luck, nobody would believe him if he said it. All in all, Fang Yuan's identity could not be exposed, a lot of Gu immortals were trying to find him. Earlier, during the Battle of He Tribe Gu immortals had worked with Heavenly Lord Baizu to try and ambush Fang Yuan, in the end, because he was vigilant, he did not go to Iron Eagle Blessed Land and escaped. Of course, Fang Yuan did not know this currently. Thus, Fang Yuan traveled outside using a fake name, Lu Guan Yi. If he said his true identity, Chu Du's attitude might have been completely different. Currently, Fang Yuan had worked together with Chu Du. Half a month ago, when Treasure Yellow Heaven opened, Fang Yuan received Chu Du's letter. In the letter, Chu Du stated the situation clearly, he informed Fang Yuan that Flying Sword Immortal Gu had an information path inheritance as clues. At that moment, Fang Yuan was enticed. Earlier, he was still thinking about the benefits of information path. With strong information path methods, he could set agreements with others and not be afraid of them being broken. He could also secretly remove the alliance agreement that was on him. He could easily betray or break his word without any restraints. He could even collect intel and make wiser decisions after knowing more details. Information path and wisdom path were complementary. Information path searched for information, while wisdom path used this information to deduce. They assisted each other. The information path inheritance insignia on Flying Sword Immortal Gu was incredible. Even the wisdom path Gu Immortal Xianxia Xian was interested and wanted it from Chu Du. Chu Du had told Fang Yuan about this situation. He wanted Fang Yuan to know about the value of the true inheritance, so that he could change his mind. Fang Yuan thought about it and decided to deal with Chu Du. He agreed to let Chu Du get Reckless Savage's true meaning, but Chu Du had to compensate him. After the Battle of He Tribe, Chu Du snatched the 13th eagle nest under Fang Yuan's guidance. Days after that, he and Fang Yuan met in Northern Plains secretly, making a transaction for both sides. Fang Yuan obtained Flying Sword Immortal Gu and the Eagle Nest, while lending out Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu. Fang Yuan could not give the Immortal Tribulation Tempering Aperture method to Chu Du even though this was an Immortal Killer move, and Immortal Gu were unique, but Chu Du could use other Immortal Gu in place of these. Different Gu worms could produce similar Immortal Killer moves after all. Chu Du was a powerful rank 7 expert after all. His reputation made him a legendary figure in the current Northern Plains. With his help, Fang Yuan successfully passed the third earthly calamity. In the first 2 times, he was gravely injured. The situation was too dangerous. But in this third earthly calamity, he only suffered some setbacks. The biggest problems were resolved by Chu Du. Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu was simply too incredible. No wonder Mo Yao wanted to use this Immortal Gu to help her lover Bo Qing undergo tribulation. But eventually, she failed. Calamity Beckoning Immortal Gu was only rank 7, but Bo Qing was undergoing the myriad tribulation that would lead him to rank 9. Fang Yuan did not want to seek the information path true inheritance with clues on Flying Sword Immortal Gu yet. The turbulent flow sea area was a problematic place. It was easy to get lost, and many Gu immortals often traveled in it. Fang Yuan placed his attention on the eagle nest. The 13th eagle nest in Iron Eagle Blessed Land was usually concealed. It only appeared when Iron Eagle Blessed Land was near the point of breaking apart. Inside this nest, there were clues to He Fan's true inheritance. Fang Yuan had explored it for some time. He had some gains. Compared to the information path true inheritance, the He Fan true inheritance, which could delay the time in his immortal aperture, was far more useful and important. Fang Yuan had decided, while he still had this period of free time after undergoing tribulation, he was going to obtain He Fan's true inheritance. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 11:15, Opening Heavenly Crystal Eagle Nest. Chapter 11:15, Opening Heavenly Crystal Eagle Nest. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios #. Sovereign Immortal Aperture, Mini Purple Heaven. A faint purple light was shining in the haziness. In the vast sky, there was a floating eagle nest. This eagle nest was like a 3-story building. There were no doors or windows. It was like a huge crystal. A type of translucent crystal, twice as thick as a human's forearm, interlinked with itself, forming this tight eagle nest that had the same color throughout. This crystal was extraordinary. Fang Yuan had recognized that this was heavenly crystal, a rank 8 immortal material. Heavenly crystal came from the sky. It was very light and could float in the sky. It would never fall to the ground unless there were external forces. Regardless of what was inside the eagle nest, just the outer nest itself contained 500 kilograms of heavenly crystals. Just this heavenly crystal alone had immense value. Evidently, this eagle nest was the 13th eagle nest in Iron Eagle Blessed Land. Its value surpassed the sum of all the other eagle nests, firmly holding the highest position. After Fang Yuan and Chu Du collaborated, Chu Du went to Iron Eagle Blessed Land, and at the final moment of He tribe's battle, he displayed great strength and took this eagle nest. However, before Chu Du left the battlefield, He tribe's first supreme elder shouted and let all of the immortals know that the 13th eagle nest had clues to He Fan's true inheritance. This was a problem for Fang Yuan. After Chu Du knew this, he renegotiated with Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan knew he had to concede. Flying Sword Immortal Gu, the Eastern Sea Information Path True Inheritance, and this 13th eagle nest, as well as He Fan's true inheritance, they had a lot of value when put together. Even though Chu Du was solely a strength path cultivator, that did not mean he could not sell these for a good price. Thankfully, Chu Du was firmly set on Fang Yuan's tribulation method. Fang Yuan exploited this to deepen his cooperation with Chu Du. He spent a lot of effort and much discussion to barely reach an agreement. Chu Du would use calamity beckoning to get reckless savages' true meaning from Fang Yuan. In the future, he will take 30% of Fang Yuan's gains from these two true inheritances. Chu Du is a normal Gu immortal. He does not want to cultivate information path and time path on the side, thus, he has little interest towards the two true inheritances. Unlike me, I can cultivate all paths. Any true inheritance can be used for my own cultivation. Even so, I really admire his resolute decision. He can give up when needed to. Northern Plains Domination Immortal, he is truly formidable, his title is well deserved. Fang Yuan inspected the eagle nest as he gathered his thoughts. He and Chu Du were allies in terms of benefits. They had little relationship, they were just making use of each other. Against Chu Du, Fang Yuan felt quite wary. He knew that Chu Du was not giving up, he still wanted the immortal tribulation tempering aperture method. Chu Du had brains and brawn, he was not a stupid domination immortal. His brawn allowed him to single-handedly cause trouble to the Huangjin superforce, Lu tribe. During the Battle of He tribe, he caused the immortals present to be unable to attack. His mind was not to be underestimated. After Lu tribe's battle, he rarely appeared, he nurtured his disciples in secret, helping them become immortals, luring out reckless savages' true meaning. During the negotiation with Fang Yuan, his eloquence made Fang Yuan recognize this person's shrewdness and wisdom. Domination Immortal had grand ambitions, how could he be satisfied with just calamity beckoning? And the bigger worry for Fang Yuan was, Chu Du seemed to have guessed his true identity. During the third earthly calamity, which was their first collaboration, the latter two lines of his poem were, flying above rivers and lakes on these clouds, nothing can obstruct my view of this world. Fang Yuan, Fang Yuan. 1. Vaguely, it seemed like he was pointing out Fang Yuan's true identity. Of course, he could be overthinking it. But many things had happened, Fang Yuan would rather be overly vigilant than miss out any important details. Chu Du's appearance was very suspicious. During the first earthly calamity, he almost took Fang Yuan's life. Fang Yuan was suspicious, Chu Du was influenced by heaven's will and was a part of a plot, the human calamity, against Fang Yuan. Cooperating with a person like this was simply asking favors from a tiger. Thus, during the first cooperation, after the third earthly calamity was over, Fang Yuan did not talk much to him, he quickly left. Chu Du let Fang Yuan leave without saying anything. First, calamity beckoning Immortal Gu was in his hands. Second, he and Fang Yuan had an alliance agreement. The information path Immortal Gu used was borrowed from other Gu immortals. Third, he could not catch Fang Yuan in terms of speed. With Chu Du's strength and skill, he had a wide network and knew many people. Fang Yuan considered one point as well. To guard against heaven's will, Fang Yuan gave Chu Du a lot of self-will Gu. At least, Fang Yuan did not need to worry that heaven's will would cause any negative influence on Chu Du. I need to be very careful when cooperating with Chu Du, if I make a mistake, it would lead to a disastrous end. Fang Yuan alerted himself mentally. He placed his attention on the Strength Path Immortal Zombie again. He controlled a Strength Path Immortal Zombie and slowly got closer to the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest. These last days, he had been using investigative methods and collecting clues, looking into He Cheng's memories, to aid with his deductions. If I am not wrong, this time. Fang Yuan had confidence as he used his Immortal Gu. The Strength Path Immortal Zombie which got close to the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest went through a complete transformation. It was originally emanating death energy, but in a moment, it became alive, turning into He Cheng, indiscernible from the real one. He Cheng gradually got close to the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest, placing his hand on the eagle nest. Fang Yuan's divine sense continued to explore, entering the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest. At the same time, Gu worms flew out, coiling around He Cheng as they flew in a spiral. Refinement Path Killer moves were used one after another, impacting on the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest. These Refinement Path Killer moves were all mortal killer moves. They were modified by He Fan in the past, passing down for generations. Before He Fan died, he instructed his descendants that any new member of He tribe who became an immortal must learn these Refinement Path methods. After several generations of research by He tribe's Gu immortals, they gradually understood, these Refinement Path Killer moves were the key to opening the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest. Many He tribe Gu immortals had used the Refinement Path Killer moves on the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest in order to get He Fan's true inheritance. Of course, they all failed. Because they lacked the most critical element, Attitude Gu. In these Refinement Path Killer moves, there was a crucial step that needed the aura of Attitude Gu to activate. This step obstructed generations of He tribe Gu immortals. Nobody could inherit He Fan's true inheritance. He tribe's Gu immortals were not fools. After understanding this, they immediately went to search for Attitude Gu. After a lot of effort by generations of He tribe Gu immortals, they finally found some clues. They gained a breakthrough in this. By the current generation, there was Su Xian's night elopement. She became He Cheng's wife. In the end, she joined He tribe as an external supreme elder. Her surname was not He. She could not learn about deep secrets like He Fan's true inheritance. But she came with a motive. With her sister Blazing Heaven Demoness' help, she stole the information about He Fan's true inheritance that generations of He tribe immortals had accumulated. Using these results, she found some suspicious points. But when she was close to success, there was a change in the situation. He Cheng killed Su Xian. Fairy Li Shan had a falling out with Blazing Heaven Demoness. As a result, Su Xian left behind the crucial clues as well as a lot of familial emotion and immortal essence to her daughter, He Lulan. After becoming an immortal, He Lulan used these clues to get back the Attitude Gu that had been lost in the northern icy plain for many years. But after some twists and turns, this immortal Gu ended up in Fang Yuan's hands, being heavily used by him. These last days, Fang Yuan had been familiarizing himself with the Refinement Path Killer move. He even disguised himself to ensure that there were no issues. Refinement Path Killer moves were used, turning into flames and lightning, attacking the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest. Each hit caused the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest to shake slightly, giving off a clear sound. Gradually, the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest's movements became larger, and the sounds it made became louder, until it resounded in the sky. The final blow. Fang Yuan was nervous. With his skillful method, he drew a trace of Attitude Gu's aura and fused it into a translucent ripple as it flew towards the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest. The ripple fused into the Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest, vanishing immediately. The Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest continued to shake. Light was emitting from within it. Gradually, the entire Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest started shining in 9 colors. Red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, purple, white, black. 9 colors filled the world. The light was dazzling and forced He Cheng to retreat to a distance. Ding ding ding. As the light faded, the sound of chimes could be heard in the sky. In front of He Cheng, this Heavenly Crystal Eagle nest that had been closed for years finally opened itself. Each of the pillars of Heavenly Crystal started moving and unraveling. making Fang Yuan think of a Rubik's Cube. The 9-colored heavenly crystal weaved and moved. Eventually, an entrance was formed on the surface of the heavenly crystal eagle nest. The entire process was fluid and dazzling. He subconsciously held his breath from the incredible sight. I understand. Fang Yuan's heart jumped. He understood the method that He Fan used. The heavenly crystals were originally colorless and translucent, but they no longer are now. These heavenly crystals have 9 colors. They should come from the respective immemorial 9 heavens. But He Fan fused them together, using these rank 8 immemorial immortal materials through refinement path methods. He caused their colors to fade away, so that they looked like a whole entity. Before He Fan died, he left behind some refinement path methods. Using these methods, one could refine these heavenly crystals, allowing them to regain their original appearance, and open up the eagle nest from the inside. Thinking about this, Fang Yuan's assessment of the heavenly crystal's value increased again. Heavenly crystals were an immortal material that could be produced naturally in grotto heavens with deep foundations, other than in the immemorial 9 heavens. Originally, Fang Yuan thought that these heavenly crystals were formed in He Fan grotto heaven. But in fact, they came from the immemorial 9 heavens. They had higher value as a result. Because there were only 2 heavens left from the immemorial 9 heavens, the other 7 were destroyed already. In the past, when He Fan searched for these heavenly crystals from the immemorial 9 heavens, he definitely spent a lot of effort. Right now, it was getting harder for Gu immortals to get these heavenly crystals. The only source was the scattered fragment worlds of the immemorial 9 heavens that were hidden in the 5 regions. He Fan true inheritance, here I come. Fang Yuan restrained his excitement as he controlled He Cheng, carefully entering the eagle nest. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 11:16, A Dead Egg. Chapter 11:16, A Dead Egg. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Fang Yuan controlled He Cheng, slowly getting into the eagle nest. Light in 9 colors shone on He Cheng's face interchangeably. His vision was covered by heavenly crystals. It was a grand and beautiful scene, like something out of a dream or illusion. The eagle nest was not big, it was like a small room. At the center of the room, there was a huge egg. Other than that, there was nothing else. He Cheng glanced at it. His gaze was focused on this egg. This egg was the height of a young man. It was oval-shaped and had a glass-like shell. It was reflecting the light of the 9 colors. It was extremely beautiful. But Fang Yuan sensed acutely that this egg was covered in death energy. It was devoid of life. Sensing this, he no longer cared about it. He placed his attention on the other aspects. He searched and explored. After some hours, other than the heavenly crystals, he had no other gains. How can this be? He Fan was a time path great expert. How can the true inheritance that he left behind only have one empty heavenly crystal eagle nest? Where are his time path immortal Gu? Where are his immortal killer moves? Fang Yuan thought quickly. Soon, he placed his attention on the dead egg again. Perhaps to find He Fan's true inheritance, that dead egg is the key. Fang Yuan guessed. At this stage, the memories that he had obtained from He Cheng were no longer useful. Fang Yuan had surpassed the generations of He tribe Gu immortals. He was at a step that they had never reached before. To obtain He Fan's true inheritance, Fang Yuan had to rely on himself. He Cheng walked around the dead egg, using his Gu worms to observe and research it. A moment later, Fang Yuan confirmed again that this was a dead egg. An absolutely dead egg. There was no disguise. This way, Fang Yuan's guess that He Fan's true inheritance was hidden inside the egg shell was thwarted. Don't tell me, He Fan's true inheritance has already been stolen by someone. The immortal Gu stored here are taken away already. I am not the first person in here. Fang Yuan could not help but think. This was not impossible. This world had too many secrets. After Fang Yuan's secret transactions with Sixth Hair, he did not dare to underestimate anyone. Even though he was a transmigrator, in this world, he was not the only one. There already was one who did well enough in life to become a rank 9 venerable. Righteous path, demonic path, lone cultivators, countless elites and geniuses, heroes and conquerors, throughout history, they were shining like brilliant stars in the sky. Fang Yuan was just one of the stars. Fang Yuan's guess was not random, he had his evidence. According to the intel obtained from Xianxia, He tribe's Gu immortals had realized that Attitude Gu was the key. While searching for Attitude Gu, they also researched their methods, replicating Attitude Gu's aura, attempting to deceive the heavenly crystal eagle nest to open. In Xianxia's memories, He tribe's Gu immortals did not succeed. But that did not mean that nobody had succeeded. A Gu immortal might have secretly opened the heavenly crystal eagle nest, taking He Fan's true inheritance for themselves, while nobody knew. And this might not even be a He tribe Gu immortal. This example was very common throughout history. The most famous example was thieving heaven demon venerable. This person was the ultimate thief. In his life, he stole many Gu immortals' true inheritances, countless forces hated him greatly. Fang Yuan inspected it a few times over, there was indeed nothing else. With his current methods and knowledge, if he found nothing, there was likely no He Fan true inheritance. Fang Yuan felt very disappointed. He was banking on He Fan's true inheritance to slow the rate of time in his immortal aperture. Of course, he had Chu Du's help now, he did not need it temporarily. But what about the future? If one did not have huge worries, they would worry about smaller things. Cooperating with Chu Du was dangerous, he was asking for favors from a tiger, heaven's will would also seek to instigate him. Even if Fang Yuan did not need it now, with this assurance, he could have many ways out in the future if he encountered trouble. Even if there is no He Fan true inheritance, this heavenly crystal eagle nest is an entire nest of rank 8 immortal materials, it has great value. In fact, other than the immortal Gu in Fang Yuan's immortal aperture, all of his other resources accumulated could not match half the value of the heavenly crystal eagle nest. Of course, this was excluding Dang Hun Mountain. Dang Hun Mountain and Luo Pa Valley were in Langya blessed land, and the trade of Guts Gu was solely handled by Langya sect now. He only took his share of the profits monthly. However, what is this dead egg? I actually could not recognize it using my own knowledge. If He Fan's true inheritance is still around, this dead egg might be the clue that He Fan purposely left behind. Even though hope was slim, Fang Yuan was intending to follow this route and investigate. He first went to Treasure Yellow Heaven, because cultivation experience and knowledge was also sold here. Among which, there were desolate beast encyclopedias, maps of southern border, books on ancient desolate plants. Fang Yuan's divine sense looked around, choosing carefully, he bought some and looked at them. Last time, he spent nearly 10,000 immortal essence stones to buy a large amount of Pil Azure incense. But this month's profits were not here yet, his funds were low. But after seeing these, even though Fang Yuan learned something, he did not manage to find information regarding this mysterious dead egg. Fang Yuan was not disappointed, instead he was a little happy. The more mysterious this dead egg was, the deeper its origin, and the greater hope he had regarding the clues to He Fan's true inheritance. This dead egg is very likely to be an immemorial desolate beast's egg. Fang Yuan's readings were not without result. But in this case, the knowledge from Treasure Yellow Heaven was basically useless. Because this knowledge were mostly limited to rank 6 and 7. Immemorial desolate beasts had rank 8 battle strength, but rank 8 Gu immortals would not sell their knowledge in Treasure Yellow Heaven. They had no lack of such money. In any case, most Gu immortals would not buy them, because with their level, they could not interact with immemorial desolate beasts. In the current world, most immemorial desolate beasts were inside White Heaven and Black Heaven. Other than that, they were in the forbidden or catastrophic areas in the 5 regions, like the Northern Plains' 10 great fierce areas, or places like Earth Trench and Earth Abyss. Should I ask directly in Treasure Yellow Heaven, putting up a high price for the origins of this egg? Fang Yuan thought about it and denied this idea. It was too eye-catching. He tribe's Gu immortals were not all dead. Wisdom Path Gu immortals could easily deduce some information. This was not good for Fang Yuan. If rank 8 Gu immortals were drawn to him, they would be a problem. Fang Yuan could not afford to face these existences yet. He did not feel much dejection from Treasure Yellow Heaven's uselessness, because he knew that he had someone who could help him with this problem. That was Xianxia Land's spirit. Xianxia Land's spirit was the obsession of Long-Hair Ancestor. He had been a rank 8 Gu immortal, a refinement path supreme grandmaster. He was famous throughout history and had great reputation. Which paths would have Gu immortals with the widest knowledge? Wisdom Path, Information Path, and Refinement Path. Wisdom Path Gu immortals could deduce secrets, Information Path Gu immortals could search and find intel, while Refinement Path Gu immortals had to refine Gu. They needed to know lots of immortal materials. As one of the greatest Refinement Path experts in history, Long-Hair Ancestor's knowledge was undeniably immense. Fang Yuan sought help from Xianxia Land's spirit. This was not a smooth process. Fang Yuan was troubled by Xianxia Land's spirit's attitude. Recently, Xianxia's sect was very unhappy with Fang Yuan. They felt that he was cultivating for himself and did not contribute to the sect. Now, Xianxia's sect was developing in Taichio. The falling star hound was causing them problems. Their progress was minimal as a result. Fang Yuan, if you kill the falling star hound, I will let you read such books in our inventory. If you want to exchange for it, use 100 contribution points. Xianxia Land's spirit said coldly with a low tone. Fang Yuan smiled, I will exchange for it. 100 contribution points was almost all that he had now. However, even so, Fang Yuan wanted to exchange for it. He did not plan to go to Taichio. Xianxia Land's spirit snorted. He was about to speak again, but Fang Yuan said, First Supreme Elder is truly impartial, handling matters according to sect rules. Xianxia sect's rise is inevitable. Xianxia Land's spirit was so angry his chest was puffing, his hair stood on ends as he breathed roughly. He contained his anger. I heard that you have a deep relationship with 12th Hair. I remember this child had praised you before. Recently, he challenged the falling star hound. He suffered great injuries and his desolate beasts all died. He is very dejected. Are you going to visit him? Thank you for the concern, First Supreme Elder. Fang Yuan had a heavy and sorrowful face, as if the one injured was not 12th Hair but himself. After exchanging for the books, I will go to 12th Hair. Fang Yuan assured. Xianxia Land's spirit was helpless. He could not do anything to Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan got what he wanted, going to 12th Hair's Cloud City along the way. But he did not meet with 12th Hair in person. Immortal Gu Master said, My master is unwilling to meet guests, please go back. Fang Yuan was not welcomed, but he did not leave. He asked with concern. However, the attitude of this mortal Gu Master was very cold. Fang Yuan could not get any results. He had to leave, helplessly. If not for the land spirit's awareness of matters in the blessed land, Fang Yuan would not even put up this show. He knew clearly, how could a mortal hairy man Gu Master act like this to a Gu immortal? Evidently, he was backed by a hairy man Gu immortal. And this person was none other than 12th Hair, who held a grudge against Fang Yuan. My relationship with Xianxia sect has reached this stage. Of course, a lot of the credit goes to 6th Hair. Xianxia sect has a lot of value. I need to restore and maintain a good relationship with it in the future, but that is not an urgent matter. Returning to his own Cloud City, he checked the information and was not disappointed. So this egg is the upper extreme heavenly eagle. Fang Yuan's heart shook. Upper extreme heavenly eagles were immemorial desolate beasts with rank 8 battle strength. After his surprise, Fang Yuan was filled with joy. He realized, his hard work was not in vain. If this was an egg of the upper extreme heavenly eagle, then He Fan's true inheritance was not taken away yet, it was waiting for him. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 11:17, Upper Extreme Heavenly Eagle. Chapter 11:17, Upper Extreme Heavenly Eagle. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Upper Extreme Heavenly Eagle. Fang Yuan had known about this immemorial desolate beast since long ago, but he did not know what its egg looked like. Upper extreme heavenly eagles were space path immemorial desolate beasts. A mature adult upper extreme heavenly eagle could freely travel in the immemorial 9 heavens or in grotto heavens. This ability was amazing. Outside of the immemorial 9 heavens, there were extremely thick heavenly wind chi walls. Grotto heavens were situated in the sky. If they did not open up, it was hard to detect them from the outside world. But as long as the upper extreme heavenly eagle had gone to a place before, it could follow its instincts and travel through space, returning to a former location. It was an immemorial desolate beast with rank 8 battle strength. It could fly extremely fast. He Fan could obtain an egg of the upper extreme heavenly eagle. He must have paid an extremely high price if it was not by chance. The upper extreme heavenly eagle's only weakness was its lifespan. It only had 80 years of lifespan. Ordinary mortals had about 100 years of lifespan. The great immemorial desolate beast, upper extreme heavenly eagle, had less lifespan than even a mortal. It was truly astounding. Other immemorial desolate beasts often had hundreds of thousands of years to live. The upper extreme heavenly eagle could not compare to them. However, it had the ability to prolong its life. When it died of old age, it would produce an egg. Inside this egg, there would be all of its memories as well as the accumulated space path Dao marks over its entire life. When the chick breaks out of the shell, the upper extreme heavenly eagle would live another life. It would grow up again, but with its previous life's memories and Dao mark accumulation. Without any unexpected mishaps, the upper extreme heavenly eagle would only become stronger. Of course, when it is an egg or eagle chick, the upper extreme heavenly eagle would be at its weakest. After understanding this, Fang Yuan had a bold guess. This upper extreme heavenly eagle's egg must have been left behind by He Fan. Why did he leave behind this egg? Evidently, the upper extreme heavenly eagle had gone to He Fan grotto heaven before. It was the key to entering it. He tribe's Gu immortals had always been searching for the grotto heaven that He Fan had left behind. But in He Cheng's memories, they had no gains. He Fan's true inheritance must be inside his own grotto heaven. This is not strange, because if he did not have food path methods, it would be best to keep all of his immortal Gu inside the grotto heaven and sustain their own feeding. That has most assurance. And He Fan grotto heaven has no tribulations. According to He Cheng's memories, He Fan had obtained a certain fragment of the immemorial 9 heavens before his death. If I am not wrong, he must have fused this fragment of the immemorial 9 heavens into his immortal aperture before dying. It is a pity, even though he has no tribulations, he had no lifespan Gu, his lifespan extension methods were also at their limits, he could only die. But why is the heavenly eagle egg inside the eagle nest dead? Fang Yuan was faced with a difficult question. There were 2 answers. One was that the heavenly eagle egg had naturally died. He Fan left the living egg behind, preventing it from hatching. He used the heavenly crystal eagle nest to create an arrangement. But because nobody came to inherit it after a long time, the heavenly crystal eagle nest was not opened. The egg died eventually after a long time. The second possibility was that the heavenly eagle egg had no life force left because He Fan did it. This egg was not truly dead, it needed a special method to unseal it. If it was the first possibility, Fang Yuan naturally could not obtain any benefits. He could only get a heavenly crystal eagle nest and a dead immemorial egg. They had great value in themselves, but that was all. From Fang Yuan's perspective, he would naturally prefer the second possibility. But if that was the case, what was the special method that could unseal the egg? Assuming the second case, how can I unseal this dead egg, to let it regain life force and even hatch? Fang Yuan fell into deep thought. He thought for a long time, but there were no answers. It was not strange. This egg was quite literally dead. If not for that, Fang Yuan would not have confirmed this at the start so easily. If I were He Fan, I would definitely leave behind clues to resolve this problem after setting up this dead egg, so that descendants could inherit this. Fang Yuan had a flash of inspiration. He realized he had subconsciously ignored something. It was the refinement path methods that He Fan had once modified and left behind on purpose. I used these methods to open the heavenly crystal eagle nest. If I use these methods again, will it work on the dead egg? Fang Yuan had a bold assumption. But he did not act yet. Because this was just a hypothesis, there was no proof or evidence backing it. Fang Yuan was vigilant. He started using wisdom path methods. He went deep into analyzing these refinement path methods, placing focus on deducing them. He quickly discovered something strange. What was strange? Some refinement path killer moves were very strangely modified. The original versions were better and had stronger effects than the newer versions. He Fan's modifications were simply going the reverse direction. What was he trying to do? Fang Yuan suddenly thought about some historical records regarding He Fan that were inside He Cheng's memories. He Fan was a rank 8 Gu immortal. During his later years, he liked to nurture juniors, but he often taught them, when learning, you have to think for yourself, don't just blindly follow and idolize your seniors' experiences. Only by thinking for yourself and learning them can you go further on the path of a Gu immortal. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan looked at the refinement path killer moves with new ideas. He tried to remove the failed modifications that He Fan did in those killer moves. He made a shocking discovery. So these refinement path killer moves are not failures. By combining them, they form a brand new killer move. He Fan had purposely added in unnecessary steps in these refinement path killer moves. They are failures individually. But together, these parts can combine into a whole. What made Fang Yuan more surprised was that this new killer move was a type of blood path method. The great rank 8 time path He Fan, researching blood path. This was not strange. Ever since Blood Sea Ancestor appeared, blood path's power was known to all. All the super forces restricted the growth of blood path, while researching it secretly themselves. This was something happening even in Central Continent's 10 great ancient sects, not to mention Northern Plains, a region with Gu immortals that sought battle strength greatly. Fang Yuan was much more confident in blood path than refinement path. He was a blood path grandmaster. Blood path was his most used path in the past. With some research, Fang Yuan realized, He Fan had purposely concealed this blood refinement killer move. It was to be used on the upper extreme Heavenly Eagle. But this blood refinement killer move was not complete. With Fang Yuan's knowledge and blood path attainment, he could tell that this blood path killer move was not complete, it was only a portion. Seeing this, Fang Yuan was not disappointed, instead his eyes were shining brightly. He Fan must have the complete blood refinement killer move. He used the first half to process this upper extreme Heavenly Eagle dead egg. He only left the other half to his descendants. But he did not pass down this blood path killer move directly to his descendants. He used a unique method to conceal it. His first motive must be to test his descendants, so that a skilled Gu immortal who could think for themselves inherits this. The second reason was that blood path was notorious. If the great He Fan's true inheritance used a blood path method, it would cause a huge commotion. He Fan did not want that to happen. Fang Yuan was scheming and shrewd. He could easily tell what He Fan was thinking in the past. After clarifying this, he was even more assured that this upper extreme Heavenly Eagle was not truly dead, it was just processed by He Fan through a special method. That made things easier. Fang Yuan was no longer an immortal zombie. He could easily draw blood from his own body. However, just as he was about to use blood refinement, he stopped his actions. So close. I almost failed to notice He Fan's intention. Fang Yuan's forehead was filled with sweat. Why did He Fan leave a blood path method for his descendants? Wasn't it really strange? Everyone knew that He Fan was a time path great expert. At this level, he could easily use time path methods to leave his inheritance behind and imitate methods of other paths. But he used blood path instead of his strongest time path. Why was that? There was only one possible reason: the blood path method could do something that time path could not. What else could it be? As a blood path grandmaster, Fang Yuan first thought of bloodline recognition. The inheritance that He Fan left behind was meant for He tribe descendants. The inheritance of a super forces Gu immortal was usually kept to the clan or tribe itself. The first condition was to be blood related. Very few Gu immortals would leave behind inheritances that could be obtained by others. Attitude Gu, the refinement path method left behind for generations, they were just the first two precautions. The blood refinement method that uses one's bloodline was the third. If the inheritor is not a He tribe descendant and does not have He tribe's bloodline, then blood refining this dead egg might cause a backlash. Or rather, the immemorial desolate beast upper extreme heavenly eagle that hatches would be the enemy of this Gu immortal. Fang Yuan thought of this and felt even more sweat on his forehead. Especially the last part, if he truly became enemies with an immemorial desolate beast, of rank 8 battle strength, he would be in deep trouble. The upper extreme heavenly eagle was very fast, Fang Yuan could not outrun it, he had weak defenses as well, he would definitely die. It seems that I can only use a proper bloodline to refine the egg. Fang Yuan wisely stopped. Some days later. In a part of the sovereign immortal aperture. He Cheng's hair was a mess, he had a very tired and weak expression. Fang Yuan manipulated the strength path immortal zombie, flying towards him. He Cheng jolted like he was hit by lightning, his body shook as he shouted in fear and shock, "You, what do you want?" Earlier, Fang Yuan had soul-searched him, forget about that. Now, he was using all sorts of methods to torture He Cheng, he was truly in misery, he felt that he was better off dead. He Cheng was Fang Yuan's captive, at this stage, he had already given up. His Gu immortal demeanor was gone. But he could not even bite his own tongue to suicide. Fang Yuan had thought, He Cheng still had some value, even though He tribe was gone, He Lu Lan was alive. Thus, He Cheng was in a state where he could neither die nor live in peace. Don't worry, this is likely to be the last time, I am confident of it. Fang Yuan manipulated the strength path immortal zombie, smiling as he got closer. He Cheng was about to cry, he struggled intensely, you say that every time, it is always the last time. No, no, no. Ah. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 11:18, Future Rank 8 Battle Strength. Chapter 11:18, Future Rank 8 Battle Strength. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. He Cheng's expression was distorted, he screamed in great agony. Fang Yuan did not care, he continued to use his blood path killer move. With blood asset immortal Gu as the core, this blood path killer move was an immortal killer move. Because of this power, He Cheng felt immense pain, blood from all over his body and even bone marrow were drained out, gathered into a lump. Next, Fang Yuan controlled the strength path immortal zombie and swallowed it whole. He Cheng was drained of much of his blood and fainted, his entire body was skin and bones, he had a pale expression, like he had died. Fang Yuan smiled coldly, several mortal Gu flew out entered He Cheng's ears, going into his bloodstream and traveling. These blood path mortal Gu were huge, when they traveled in He Cheng's body, there were bumps over his body, as if rats were moving rapidly in him. Soon, these rats became smaller and smaller, He Cheng's body started inflating, color was restored on his face. But he was exhausted mentally, as if he had just overcome a huge sickness. He slowly opened his eyes, looking at the strength path immortal zombie, he muttered, spare me, spare me. I am willing to surrender, I will be loyal to you. Fang Yuan did not reply to him. He Cheng had said this many times. Fang Yuan did not care to have a subordinate like He Cheng. Fang Yuan was already wary of the Featherman Gu immortal Zhou Zhong, not to mention He Cheng. With the outside situation as it was, Fang Yuan could only trust himself. In fact, sometimes, he did not even trust himself. After the Battle of Tian Mountain, Fang Yuan had lost his memories. After knowing the secrets of Heaven's will and his rebirth, he realized that the fortuitous encounters that he remembered in his previous life were likely arrangements set by Heaven's will. Right now, Fang Yuan's focus was on manipulating the strength path immortal zombie. After swallowing He Cheng's blood, the strength path immortal zombie's body shone with a thin layer of blood-red light. Under Fang Yuan's expectant gaze, this blood-red light slowly faded, entering the strength path immortal zombie's body, turning into blood which those of He tribe's bloodline had. Success! After several inspections, Fang Yuan was excited. These last days, he had been preparing to refine the egg. Disguising his bloodline was not a problem for Fang Yuan. He was a blood path grandmaster, he had a deep foundation in his previous life. But he had to take into account He Fan's blood refinement method, it was a bit troublesome. Fang Yuan had to deduce and modify it several times. After torturing He Qing many times, he finally succeeded. With this blood, I still cannot use it on the egg. I need to integrate this blood path killer move into familiar face, so as to be certain. For the next 10 days, Fang Yuan focused on deductions. But he had high attainment levels, blood path and transformation path were both grandmaster. Ordinary Gu immortals could not achieve this, but he completed it in less than half a month. Looking at the time, a month had passed in total. He was only about a month away from the fourth earthly calamity. With everything ready now, Fang Yuan made good use of his time, immediately targeting the egg. As he had expected, under the effect of the blood path killer move, the lifeless egg started to produce life force. As more and more blood went in, this life force also grew stronger, and became more amiable with Fang Yuan. 8 days and nights later, the shell cracked from inside, as a small bird came out. This bird was newly hatched, but it was not small, it could stand at the height of a youngster. The small eagle looked at the strength path immortal zombie that Fang Yuan had become, it had a warm gaze, affection could be seen from within its sharp eagle eyes. It was like a child seeing their parents. Come here. Fang Yuan manipulated the immortal zombie, saying. The little eagle quickly jumped to the immortal zombie, looking at him with dark eyes that showed an innocent gaze without any wariness. The immortal zombie stretched out its arm, patting the eagle's head. There was only a layer of yellow feathers on the young eagle's head, it was very sparse, Fang Yuan could feel its scalp, it had a good feeling of warmth. While patting it, the young eagle lowered its head without any resistance. Not just that, the eagle's eyes were shut, it opened its beak and chirped cutely, as if it was trying to get Fang Yuan's attention. Fang Yuan could discern many things, he internally praised, He Fan is amazing, he actually removed the memories of the upper extreme heavenly eagle from its previous life, only its space path Dao Mark foundation is left. If it had its memories, this upper extreme heavenly eagle, as an immemorial desolate beast, would be hard to control. And this blood path killer move can actually enslave an immemorial desolate beast. No, enslave is not the word, the true effect is to make the immemorial desolate beast feel close to me, it is the sense of kinship, of being a close bloodline relative. This way, it should not be hard to get it to carry me and find He Fan Grotto Heaven. Just when he had that idea in his mind, the eagle chirped anxiously, its body was wavering unstably. Hungry? Fang Yuan controlled the immortal zombie, pulling back his hand as he pointed at the heavenly crystal eagle nest, go eat. The upper extreme heavenly eagle's food were heavenly crystals. After getting permission, the little eagle chirped happily, it jumped over and pecked, causing a small piece of heavenly crystal to fall out. The little eagle carried the heavenly crystal in its beak, it did not swallow it, instead, it turned to the strength path immortal zombie. The strength path immortal zombie smiled at the little eagle, saying warmly, go eat. The little eagle understood, it raised its head and swallowed the small piece of heavenly crystal. Next, it continued to eat. The hard heavenly crystal broke apart like tofu inside its beak, Fang Yuan watched, slightly startled. One could not look down on this bird, it was a genuine immemorial desolate beast, upper extreme heavenly eagle. This means, from now on, I control battle strength on the level of an immemorial desolate beast. No, it is too young, it cannot have such high battle strength. It seems to understand my words, that must be He Fan's doing. Since he can erase its memories, he can also make it learn human language. However, there is a huge flaw. I need to disguise my bloodline, so that the upper extreme heavenly eagle feels close to me. The real me would not do, I would even get attacked by it. After all, such immemorial desolate beasts are very prideful, they are naturally aggressive. Fang Yuan considered the other aspects. For the next few days, Fang Yuan controlled the strength path immortal zombie, staying with the young eagle, watching it eat. The young eagle did not eat all the time, it ate for a while before going to the strength path immortal zombie, snuggling up to it and sleeping. It was extremely trusting of the strength path immortal zombie, it did not guard against it. For the next few days, half of the heavenly crystal eagle nest was consumed. This consumption speed gave Fang Yuan a headache. In order to get an immemorial level battle strength, spending such immortal materials was needed. But the price of feeding it was truly very high. The young eagle grew quickly. It was the height of a youngster initially, but in a few days, it was as tall as Fang Yuan. It stood on the ground, raising its head. It had a strong body and thick layer of feathers, it had sharp eagle eyes and dark sharp claws. When it scratched, heavenly crystals broke like thin paper. The time was ripe, Fang Yuan was not going to wait any longer. He recalled the strength path immortal zombie, taking back all of the immortal goo and mortal goo in it, using familiar face on his own body. The current familiar face had exceeded the original version, by adding in blood acid immortal goo and other mortal goo. This way, Fang Yuan could even disguise his bloodline. Fang Yuan chose to leave Langya blessed land, choosing a spot with nobody around, opening his immortal aperture and letting out the upper extreme heavenly eagle. The young eagle saw Fang Yuan's true body, it did not have any suspicions. Coming over to peck at Fang Yuan's palm lightly, it lowered its head, using its head to rub Fang Yuan's shoulder. It had a very warm attitude. Fang Yuan smiled, instructing the young eagle, "Quickly bring me to He Fan Grotto Heaven, I need to inherit He Fan's true inheritance." The young eagle went in a daze, it remembered a certain part of its memories, chirping loudly as it spread its wings. Fang Yuan saw the chance and jumped onto the eagle's back. The eagle screeched, carrying Fang Yuan as it ascended, flying towards the southeast direction. The surrounding air currents were wildly blowing past his ears. Fang Yuan activated his goo worms, sitting on the eagle's back stably. He was very satisfied with the upper extreme heavenly eagle's speed, it was not inferior to sword escape immortal goo. Most importantly, this upper extreme heavenly eagle was an infant eagle, it was far from maturity, it had yet to fully develop. A mature upper extreme heavenly eagle was huge, multiple times the size of a whale. Fang Yuan also estimated, its current battle strength had not reached rank 8 yet, currently, it was at rank 6 level. Even though it had a lot of space path Dao marks, it did not have wild goo. A major influence on desolate beasts and plants in their battle strength was their physical bodies. This was different from humans had weak physiques, but desolate beasts had naturally powerful attack, defense, as well as recovery. Not to mention immemorial desolate beasts. This was the first time Fang Yuan was interacting with the upper extreme heavenly eagle, his earlier assessment of it having rank 8 battle strength upon hatching was wrong. Even though he was disappointed, it was sure to grow into having rank 8 battle strength in the future. The upper extreme heavenly eagle traveled quickly, Fang Yuan sat on its back, once in a while, he fed it heavenly crystals. During other times, Fang Yuan was not slacking, he was analyzing He Fan as a person. From He Cheng's memories, there was lots of praise towards He Fan. This time path expert who had led He tribe to a glorious era in history was not simple. Fang Yuan reviewed the process of unraveling He Fan true inheritance, it was as if he was fighting against He Fan in terms of wits. This was truly an extraordinary contest. He Fan left behind the refinement path killer moves, heavenly crystal eagle nest, dead upper extreme heavenly eagle egg, and the hidden blood path killer move. They revealed to Fang Yuan this time path great expert's meticulousness, his shrewd planning and proud nature. Those who could cultivate to rank 8 were not simple characters. He Fan was an expert at rank 8, his true inheritance was not easy to obtain. He tribe's Gu immortals tried for so many years without success. Of course, this was also due to the loss of attitude Gu. But it was undeniable that anyone else would have failed. Only a shrewd and astute individual like Fang Yuan would be able to make progress while exploiting the appropriate opportunities, eventually making his way to He Fan Grotto Heaven. After I get to He Fan Grotto Heaven, will I get to obtain the true inheritance? I have a feeling that He Fan's test is not over yet. But the more tests there are, the more extraordinary the true inheritance. This is not a bad thing. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know your report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1119, Entering He Fan Grotto Heaven. Chapter 1119, Entering He Fan Grotto Heaven. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. 1.5 days later, the upper extreme heavenly eagle carried Feng Yuan and flew to the sky of an unknown location. The upper extreme heavenly eagle's speed decreased, it started to fly around the air. After a while of flying, it seemed to have confirmed the location, it pecked at a certain spot. Instantly, Feng Yuan could hear a clear sound of a bell, as space tore open and his vision changed. In an instant, the upper extreme heavenly eagle brought him into He Fan Grotto Heaven, disappearing from northern plains sky. The upper extreme heavenly eagle can truly cross space and enter grotto heavens. It is so amazing. As an infant, when it matures, it will surely be a huge help. Feng Yuan praised in his mind as he looked around. This grotto heaven was huge and vast, it was an extraordinary sight. Below Feng Yuan, there was an ancient forest. It was green and huge, birds and beasts lived in it, there was much life within. Musical trees. There were trees with rainbow-colored leaves and countless birds flying on them, landing on the branches as they chirped, creating a beautiful melody. Chi-death birds. One of the types of birds had plump bodies that pressed down on the branches, they were covered in chi currents and had distinct voices. Tea stream. Between trees, there was a smooth flowing stream, the water was a clear, pale green, it was steaming hot, making the leaves inside resemble tea leaves. Feng Yuan took a look, finding many cultivation resources inside the forest. He looked at the sky, this grotto heaven sky was azure in color. It seems that He Fan obtained a fragment of the immemorial azure heaven, after fusing it into his grotto heaven, the sky never changed color again. Feng Yuan made an initial confirmation that this was He Fan Grotto Heaven. Because in He Cheng's memories, he knew that He Fan had once grew musical trees and famously sold them in Treasure Yellow Heaven. This entire forest was made of musical trees, the scale was shockingly big. Just as Feng Yuan was looking around, the entire world suddenly started to ring with sounds of a bell. The bell rang 10 times. Next, a brass bell appeared in front of Feng Yuan. Heavenly Spirit. There's indeed a heavenly spirit. Feng Yuan's heart shook, he got nervous. He did not have He tribe's bloodline after all, even though he deceived the upper extreme heavenly eagle, he still had to deceive the heavenly spirit to obtain the true inheritance. In the northeast part of He Fan Grotto Heaven, there was a tall mountain. The locals named it Gu Mountain, they revered it. There was a cave in the mountain. In the cave, 3 Gu immortals were conversing. Without taking risks, how can we have great gains? To break free of this cage, we need to take on the risks of doing so. Gu immortal Feng Jun had an agitated expression. The other 2 Gu immortals looked at each other with hesitation. One of them, Gu immortal Xianxia, looked at Feng Jun, this is a huge matter, if we are careless, we will die, how can we not act carefully? The other Gu immortal, Zhou Min, was female, she had beautiful features, brother Feng Jun, please calm down. It is very difficult to deal with the heavenly spirit, we need to plan this wisely, we are not in a rush. Don't worry, the 3 of us are sworn siblings, we will work as one and move forward together. Feng Jun raised his head and sighed, the heavenly spirit is not scary, we have already gained its trust, using the killer move, Blood Light Spirit Suppression, that I created, I am very confident of success. Xianxia looked at Feng Jun, brother, I do not want to say this, but why are you in a rush? You said earlier that Blood Light Spirit Suppression was created recently. This immortal killer move has just been created, it is not perfected. Even if it is perfected, we need to practice it first, why are you so hurried? That's right, brother. Zhou Min also said, to deal with the heavenly spirit, we are not sufficient. We might as well convince old immortal Chen Qi to the west, he has 3 Gu immortals under him. Feng Jun snorted, saying in disdain, Chen Qi is useless. He is about to die, yet he still acts so conservatively, we should not rely on him. Feng Jun shook his head. Zhou Min frowned. Brother, even if you look down on old immortal Xianxia, he has the highest cultivation level. Even if we cannot work with him to deal with the heavenly spirit, we have to get him to watch on the sidelines and not interfere. Sister makes sense. Zheng Tuo added. Feng Jun had a grim expression. After some hesitation, he said, I am not going to lie, you both know I cultivate luck path. Recently, I have had an ominous feeling, something bad is going to happen. I have this indescribable sensation, if we do not take the chance now, we might not have a chance anymore. These words were simply Feng Jun's assumption, he had no proof at all to back him up. But the other two immortals had grim expressions. Zhou Min said, Brother, you once had gone up Immortal Succession Mountain and cultivated the luck path inheritance that was on it. Even though your cultivation level did not reach rank 7, as the first inheritor, your Dao marks are not less than that of a rank 7 luck path Gu immortal. I heard that with a certain number of luck path Dao marks, the Gu immortal will have a mystical promotion. On the side, Zheng Tuo also added, that's right, for refinement path Gu immortals, their Gu refinement abilities would rise sharply. When refining Gu, they would be able to sense minute details. For fire path Gu immortals, they would have a certain sense towards fire path immortal Gu and desolate beasts. For wisdom path Gu immortals, even without using any Gu, their own deduction abilities would be very strong. As for luck path Gu immortals, they would have some sensation towards their own luck or the luck around them. That's right. Feng Jun sighed, his expression calming down. Since Zhou Min and Zheng Tuo could understand him, that was good. After all, the killer move, blood light spirit suppression, that he made could not be used alone, all three of them needed to activate it together. Suddenly, at this time, the sound of a bell from outside became clearer. Did someone else ascend Immortal Succession Mountain, obtaining a true inheritance? Zheng Tuo's eyes flashed. Regardless of who it is, we have to get them over to our side. Zhou Min immediately said. Listen, there are 5 rings already. Feng Jun's attention was drawn. Impressive, this person got to this point. In the past, even you, brother, only got this far. Zheng Tuo praised. But soon, their expressions changed. 7 times. Zhou Min cried out. How can this be? Not only was I surpassed, even old immortal Xianxia was surpassed. Feng Jun could not believe it, he was aware of the difficulties of going up Immortal Succession Mountain. But next, a 10th bell sound rang out, it resounded in the entire world, continuing to spread. The 3 immortals were like statues, they stood in their places, unmoving. A moment later, Zhou Min snapped back to awareness, shock was expressed all over her beautiful face. Did I hear wrongly? The bell rang 10 times. Feng Jun's expression was dark. According to the stone tablet on Immortal Succession Mountain, 10 rings of the bell means that the person from the main tribe who is qualified to inherit old ancestor He Fan's true inheritance is here. Don't tell me my bad feeling is due to this person. After so many years, I thought that nobody would inherit the first true inheritance on Immortal Succession Mountain. To think that. Zheng Tuo shook his head, showing a complex expression. He looked at the 2 immortals beside him, they also had differing expressions. Zheng Tuo let out a breath of air, stabilizing his mind. Let's go. According to the rules, when the proper inheritor appears, the heavenly spirit will welcome them personally. We need to go ahead and pay respects to them too. Pay respects. Pay what respects? Feng Jun's body shook, he said shrilly, regardless of who it is. Why must we go and pay respects to them? We are also He tribe descendants with He tribe's bloodline. Just because our ancestors were criminals, we have to be subservient to the main tribe forever. Zhou Min quickly consoled him, brother, you make sense, I agree. Even though this is sudden, the result is not out of control yet. According to the rules on the stone tablet, even though the inheritor is here, the time has passed already. To inherit He Fan's true inheritance, they would need to pass a test. Whether we are going to find trouble with them or take down the heavenly spirit, we need to stay calm, stay cool. Feng Jun was reminded, his mind cleared up, sister, you are right, we still have a chance. Go, we will go immediately, we cannot expose any flaws. I want to see how amazing this inheritor is, do they have 3 heads or 6 arms? Humph. The brass bell floated in front of Fang Yuan. After ringing 10 times, it went silent. Fang Yuan tried to ask, "Are you the heavenly spirit?" "I am He Cheng, I opened the heavenly crystal eagle nest and hatched the upper extreme heavenly eagle, I am here to inherit ancestor He Fan's true inheritance." But the brass bell remained silent, it floated in front of Fang Yuan, unmoving. As expected, after devouring the fragment of immemorial azure heaven, even the heavenly spirit has become mindless. Fang Yuan's eyes flashed, he understood the reason. This intel was obtained from Shadow Sect as well. After absorbing a fragment of the immemorial 9 heavens, even though the grotto heaven would have no tribulations, if the Gu immortal dies and becomes a heavenly spirit, they would not have control and would be mindless. All in all, it was because of heaven's will. Heaven's will originated from the 5 regions and 9 heavens. Ordinary grotto heavens were small worlds independent of the outside world. But once they absorbed an immemorial 9 heavens fragment, they would let heaven's will in. Their personal authority would be greatly diminished due to heaven's will. Shadow Sect had deep research in this. In the past, a Shadow Sect member, one of the 7 original split souls, 7-star child, had went ahead to devour a fragment of immemorial blue heaven, attempting to research a way to deal with heaven's will. Unfortunately, heaven's will made use of it and caused 7-star child to be stuck inside star constellation Immortal Venerable's dream realm, unable to get out. Star constellation Immortal Venerable's dream realm, because starry sky grotto heaven had shattered and broken into many pieces, landed in many areas of central continent like all of the other grotto heaven fragment worlds. Among which, on a nameless mountain, Fang Yuan was invited by Immortal Crane's sect to explore it. Coincidentally, inside this fragment world, Fang Yuan explored the dream realm and obtained crucial pointers. Eventually, on Tian Mountain, Fang Yuan obtained the result of Shadow Sect's plan after 100,000 years. From this, one could see that by absorbing any 9 heavens fragment, the grotto heaven world would be under the supervision of heaven's will. It was not safe for Fang Yuan. The safest place for him were blessed lands or grotto heavens like Langyup Blessed Land. They were privately owned, heaven's will could not look inside. Long Hair Ancestor was a very famous figure, it was not hard for him to get some immemorial 9 heavens fragments. But from start to finish, he did not let his grotto heaven absorb any fragment of the immemorial 9 heavens. Thus, this grotto heaven is far less valuable to me than He Fan's true inheritance. Once I inherit He Fan's true inheritance, I will give this grotto heaven to Chu Du, it will fulfill that agreement of splitting 30% profit with him. Fang Yuan was still planning, when a few people appeared from the sky, their immortal auras were unconcealed, they rapidly got closer. What is going on? He Fan Grotto Heaven has Gu immortals. Fang Yuan was surprised. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1120, Shocking the Immortals. Chapter 1120, Shocking the Immortals. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. From far away, 4 Gu immortals approached. Fang Yuan had a serious expression, he watched without blinking. This situation was out of his expectations. Why are there Gu immortals here? Fang Yuan looked at the heavenly spirit and asked. But this He Fan Grotto Heaven's heavenly spirit was too dull, it did not respond. Fang Yuan felt a gloomy sensation. After a while, the 4 Gu immortals got close, but there was no animosity from them. Fang Yuan prepared himself without showing any changes externally. I, criminal immortal Chen Qi, greet the superior immortal from the main tribe. The leader was an old Gu immortal. He wore a tall crown, he had a green-gray robe and white hair. After seeing Fang Yuan, he paid respects with a solemn expression. Criminal immortal. Fang Yuan thought over this, but he quickly responded, I am not worthy of being called a superior immortal, My name is He Cheng. I was fortunate to have inherited He Fan's true inheritance, to think that I could meet so many immortals after entering the grotto heaven. Fang Yuan had turned into He Cheng's appearance. This was after careful consideration. After all, with Treasure Yellow Heaven's existence, even though He Fan Grotto Heaven was isolated from the outside world, they could still find out about He Tribe's information. He Cheng had gone missing, and he lost He Tribe's immortal Gu house, but that did not hinder him from inheriting He Fan's true inheritance. Most importantly, Fang Yuan had all of He Cheng's memories. He could disguise as him perfectly with no flaws. Xianxia raised his head, looking at Fang Yuan. He sighed in admiration. He Cheng was publicly recognized as a handsome man in Northern Plains. He had a gentlemanly grace and many women had crushes on him. At this moment, even though Fang Yuan was in disguise, he even had a superior flair to He Cheng. With his looks, he was extraordinary and charming. He could take one's heart easily. Of the 4 Gu immortals who came, 2 were female. Seeing Fang Yuan's looks, their hearts involuntarily beat faster. The other was a young man with an ordinary appearance. Xianxia bowed again. Superior immortal He Cheng, you have dazzling disposition. Us criminal immortals of He Tribe have waited for so long up until you finally came. Heaven truly is not blind. I am flattered, but why do you call yourselves criminal immortals? What does that mean? I do not understand. Fang Yuan frowned, asking directly. Xianxia was about to answer, when a voice came from afar. Superior immortal, it is normal that you do not know. Our ancestors were guilty of a heavy crime in He Tribe. Back then, old ancestor He Fan's granddaughter, He Fengyu, carried attitude Gu and roamed the icy plain. She was targeted by a mysterious Gu immortal. At that time, our ancestors were her guards, but they failed to take care of her. He Fengyu went missing and even attitude Gu was lost. Old ancestor He Fan doted on his granddaughter He Fengyu, but he searched for her to no avail. Our ancestors could not make up for this failure. They could only submit to punishment and were locked inside this He Fan Grotto Heaven by old ancestor He Fan. They were our lineage, continuing to live here over the generations. So that's it. Fang Yuan understood. He meticulously observed them. There were 3 new immortals that just came here. 2 males and 1 female. They were Feng Jun, Zhou Min, and Zheng Tuo. Feng Jun and Zhou Min were rank 6, Fang Yuan took a glance at them. Zheng Tuo flew in front. He was the leader of the 3 immortals. He was the one who answered Fang Yuan earlier. He had his rank 7 cultivation level unconcealed. He had an ordinary face with a hunched back. When he flew over, there was a thin line of blood behind him. He was a blood path cultivator. This made Fang Yuan surprised internally. A blood path Gu immortal appeared openly like this, but the other Gu immortals were completely unfazed. They seemed used to it. Unless, this person does not cultivate blood path primarily, but only as a secondary path. Even so, it cannot be shown openly. Fang Yuan was a bit puzzled. If this was in the 5 regions, this blood path demonic immortal would have already been a target of pursuit. But at the moment, it seemed like he was doing pretty well. Not only was there no animosity, he even had 2 subordinates. These 2 were really daring. They were not afraid that this leader would attack them to increase his own battle strength. The 3 immortals flew closer and greeted Fang Yuan as well, having a respectful attitude. But Fang Yuan could tell clearly, this Feng Jun was not sincere. He held animosity towards Fang Yuan. He took several glances secretly with an unkind expression. Actually, the rest were also like this. Be it Xianxia or the other Gu immortals, they were solemn and cautious regarding Fang Yuan. While expressing kindness, they had ill intentions hidden. Their attitudes were strange. After greeting Fang Yuan, the 3 immortals talked to Xianxia and the immortals behind him. They spoke plainly, but they did not gather together. They floated in the air, forming 2 clear groups. Fang Yuan saw all of these. On the surface, he was talking to them warmly, but on the inside, he was memorizing these details. How many of you are there in this He Fan Grotto Heaven? Fang Yuan thought about this and asked. Not many. Other than the 7 of us here, there are only 2 others. Xianxia replied, they will be here soon. Superior Immortal, when you arrived, the heavenly spirit came to welcome you, 10 rings of the bell resounded. They have also gone up Immortal Succession Mountain before, they know what it meant. Immortal Succession Mountain. Fang Yuan noted this name, but did not ask about it yet. As expected, 2 more Gu immortals appeared soon after. They were both males, they paid respects to Fang Yuan. Like the other Gu immortals, they also had strange expressions. After the Gu immortals gathered, the heavenly spirit finally made a move. It suddenly shook, creating a loud sound as it drifted forward. The heavenly spirit wants to direct us to Immortal Succession Mountain, Superior Immortal, please follow us. Xianxia saw this and said. Fang Yuan nodded, he followed the brass bell heavenly spirit cautiously. In this situation, he was alone, but the other side had 9 Gu immortals, 2 rank 7 and 7 rank 6. If they suddenly attacked him, it would be a chaotic brawl with an unpredictable result. However, even though the heavenly spirit was mindless, it could still welcome Fang Yuan, that showed that it carried He Fan's will, it was not completely unreliable. Earlier, Fang Yuan could already tell that these people were not united, they were in different groups. The last 2 that came even seemed to be lone cultivators. Precisely so, Fang Yuan decided to travel with them, he wanted to observe them first, and did not take action yet. The heavenly spirit did not fly quickly. Thus, Fang Yuan did not use the upper extreme heavenly eagle, he let it fly alongside him. In this situation, he did not dare to keep the upper extreme heavenly eagle in his immortal aperture. If anything happened, even if the upper extreme heavenly eagle could not kill the enemy, it could attract their firepower. Along the way, Fang Yuan talked to the Gu immortals. Initially, they were very wary of Fang Yuan, they spoke with him cautiously, there was a huge distance between them. But what had Fang Yuan experienced? In the 500 years of his previous life, he had interacted with countless people, he had shocking interpersonal skills in communication. Soon, Fang Yuan got closer to them. Gradually, there was even laughter coming from this group. Sister, look at He Cheng, he is truly a superior immortal from the main tribe. He is so charming and attractive, no wonder it was him, only people like this are worthy of old ancestor He Fan's true inheritance. In the group, a female Gu immortal with long hair in 2 buns and bubbly nature looked at Fang Yuan as she transmitted secretly. This was one of the female immortals who came with Xianxia. The Gu immortal who had been referred to as sister was more elegant and mature, she heard the words and transmitted in a cheeky tone, "Hehe, it seems that you, sister, are infatuated. But yes, he is truly a dragon among men. He seems to be young and have high cultivation level, he also has such charm and speaks with great experience, he has a convincing tone and makes people feel engaged when talking to him. Sigh, I wonder if people like him are rare in the outside world. What kind of place is Northern Plains?" Fang Yuan's ears twitched, he listened to all these words without missing any. These Gu immortal sisters used an ancient transmission method that had gone out of favor in Northern Plains long ago, this was exactly why Fang Yuan could eavesdrop on their conversation. Even though this was a grotto heaven, and mortal Gu could be prevented from being used, Fang Yuan did not receive a restriction in this aspect, he felt some assurance. Actually, not just these 2 female Gu immortals, the other Gu immortals were also conversing, but they were not speaking as frequently as these 2. The other Gu immortals were discussing Fang Yuan's background and battle strength. These matters were more important. To think that this person has rank 7 cultivation level. On our side, only old immortal Xianxia and brother Xianxia match his cultivation level. Even though he is not displaying any immortal Gu aura, the eagle flying beside him is extraordinary. This eagle is strange, it seems to be a desolate beast, but its aura is not normal. We have desolate beasts and ancient desolate beasts in our grotto heaven, but their aura cannot compare to this young eagle. After some discussions, someone could not control himself anymore, he asked, "Superior Immortal, I see that your eagle is not ordinary, it looks very imposing, we do not know about it, may I ask what its origins are?" Fang Yuan took a look, it was the Gu immortal named Feng Jun. Feng Yuan thought for a moment, he smiled, he, such good perception, you can tell that my beloved eagle is extraordinary. This is an upper extreme heavenly eagle, have you heard of it? If fully grown, it is an immemorial desolate beast. But right now, it can only be used for traveling, it cannot compare to my other ancient desolate beasts. Immemorial desolate beast. At once, the immortals gasped. Countless heated, shocked, and amazed gazes focused on the upper extreme heavenly eagle, observing it carefully. Feng Yuan spoke casually, but he threw a bomb into these immortals' minds. These Gu immortals had varying emotions, they could not conceal their shock. Next, when they conversed with Feng Yuan, their tone was unavoidably more polite and restricted. Feng Yuan did not act with a forceful stance, he smiled like before. But his smile, when they saw it now, felt completely different from before. Upper extreme heavenly eagle, an immemorial desolate beast. Who is this person? He actually has an immemorial desolate beast with him. It seems that even in the main tribe, he has a high status. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible.